Good morning. Hopefully you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up as long as somebody can hear me. I think we're okay. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Brenna. Brenna. Is that how you say it? Brenna? I haven't heard that before. That's cute. Okay, we're just gonna wait until 10 o'clock before we start, but can you see my picture too? Okay. Okay, if any of you have come to some of my classes, you'll know I usually have a QR code. You can scan it and pull up the document, the Google Doc, so that you can enter the keywords as I'm talking. You can also do that via this link that I'll put in the chat, and I'll have to put it in a few times because I think anybody who joins later can't see it, but you can click on the link, or you can send me an email and just write down your keywords as we go along. You'll need 4 out of the 5. So just make sure you write down the keywords, keep track of them somehow so that you aren't worried about anything. Let me just Um, okay, so I'll put this up again for any people. I know I'm going to be admitting people for the next 15 minutes or so, but just make sure you keep track of the keywords so that you can get credit. Okay, let's talk a little bit about rates. Always at the beginning of classes, as people are coming in, I like to chat about rates a little bit. What's going on with rates? Who knows? Who wants to tell us? I mean, typically lenders are focused on rates, right? But you as agents, you're going to have people ask you, what's going on with rates? Should I jump in now? Carol, do you have a comment?
They just went up slightly
Okay. So
based on a report that I just kind of read that's going to be like a holding and possibly even increase over the next 90 days.
okay, yeah. So do we really know what's going to happen?
No, it's
If
a
a
guess.
lender's if a lender says to you, I know what's going to happen, run the other way, okay? Because they don't know. But we can kind of watch what's going on with bonds, especially affect mortgage rates. So if bonds are selling off really fast, then we have rates typically go up. So bonds typically affect it. You want to watch for the Fed meetings. If they're talking about increasing the Fed rates, that doesn't directly affect mortgages. So be careful when you're talking about that, but it can affect the way that we see what's going on. And so a lot of times if they project and we think they're going to lower rates, then lenders might price that in. And if they start to say, okay, we're not going to lower rates, then lenders will kind of back off and you'll see rates adjust. But what's the point of talking about rates, do you think, for me? What am I trying to get across to you guys? Anybody have an idea?
Well, I think it's important to know those so that when you're having conversation with your buyers about purchasing payments, those kind of things, you at least can give them a good idea of what to expect if they haven't already talked to the lender, or when you're working with the lender, you're kind of all talking that same language so that they know that you're kind of a team working together.
Good, I love that. Anybody else? Is it a good time to buy right now?
It is, yes.
Why?
Because when rates get down to 6% or so, there'll be a flurry of business and housing prices will go up.
Okay. Okay. So, and what will also happen, do you think, Larry, when rates come down? What are we going to lose when the market changes a little bit and shifts? Seller concessions, right?
Oh, yeah, right.
So right now, most people are getting at least most of my deals, there's a few areas that are super competitive. There's a couple, every once in a while you'll have a house that has multiple offers, but for the most part, I'm getting between 10 and 20,000 on, the agents that I'm dealing with right now are getting 10 to 20,000 for their buyers to either buy down the rate or use for their closing costs. So that will probably go away when rates come down and more people jump into the market. And so another thing to think about when you're talking to people about rates is you want to have an answer for why it's a good time to buy, even though their payments, 1,000, 2,000 more than what they want it to be, or because it's more than rent. So just kind of have that in your mind. Even think about when you bought your house, if you have a house, and how you felt about the purchase price and the payment. And no matter where the interest rates are or where the prices are, we all feel that way when we jump into the market. And 10 years from now, they're going to be super glad they bought a house and that they didn't wait. So anyway, there are people who are sitting on the fence right now who are scared to jump in the market, scared to make the payment, scared to be house poor, but waiting only will cost them more money and less equity. So anyway, hopefully you have good talking points for your buyers. And one thing I wanted to share with you, both James and I are doing this right now, is a 1-1 buy down. So as a lender, either 0.8 less in fees, which helps, and some people are choosing that. But right now, when you know your payment's going to be higher, if you can for the first year have a little bit lower payment. So if you lock in at 6.875, you're going to pay for the first year as if you were at 5.875 if you choose to, if your buyers choose to do the 1 year, 1% temporary buy down. So that can help, and it's helped a few of my people decide to jump in and have a little bit of relief. It's a couple $100 a month for a $400,000 loan amount. And so that can give them a little bit of breathing room for that first year, and then hopefully rates can come down and they can refinance. So everybody's trying to do things to help with the interest rate and help with the payment, but at the end of the day, it's just buyers have to be willing to jump in. Okay, let's go ahead and start our advertising class. We have a whole advertising part, a little bit of ethics part, and then we'll talk about some things you can do to jumpstart your business. Advertising doesn't take up the whole 2 hours, but we wanted this to be a 2-hour class. And so we've added a few things to be able to make it a 2-hour class and give you those credits. Okay, most of you know a lot of things about advertising. Hopefully you'll learn something new, or at least reiterate the things that you need to be careful of and watch for so that you don't get in trouble with your advertising. We're going to look at the Utah real estate licensing and practice rules. We're going to look at requirements and restrictions of advertising. Gifts and inducements, that's one that we always go over so that people make sure they don't do things that are not okay there, and just kind of solidify that for you. Prohibited conduct, what does RESPA prohibit? Marketing and sponsorship, referral fees, affiliated business arrangement, and then we'll talk a little bit about code of ethics and 10 steps to succeeding in real estate, and we'll see how far we get in those 10 steps. Okay, so let's see. What's one thing you always have to have on advertising? What's the thing you always want to have?
Your brokerage name,
Okay, what if you're on a team? Can you have your
your
team
team
name on
name,
there?
and your brokerage name.
Okay, you can't just have your team name. So be careful of that. If you're on a team, you have to have the brokerage name too. So make sure you always have that. Now, we'll talk in a minute about your logo being placed on advertising. They had the one-click rule right here that you'll hear a lot. But when we went and did our training, one of the people from the board said, we really don't see a time when you can't have your brokerage license on there, your brokerage logo on there. So while we say the one-click rule, there really isn't a time when you shouldn't be able to just put your brokerage logo on there. So keep that in mind when you're looking at things like that on the internet. Just put your brokerage logo on there. You'll always be safe if you always have that on there. So the brokerage logo, this is what it says in the rules. Name of the brokerage must be clearly and conspicuously shown. It used to be a size rule. If you've been in the business for a little while, it used to have to be a certain size, but now it's just clearly and easily seen. So make sure it's big enough that people can see it and notice it. Again, the one-click rule is there, but again, they said, I don't see when it wouldn't be easy to put that brokerage on there. So just put it on there on the beginning of anything you put on the internet. A licensee does not have to identify the brokerage if the licensee advertises a property not currently listed with the brokerage in which they are affiliated. The licensee has an ownership interest in the property, and the advertisement identifies the name of the individual licensee as owner agent or owner broker. So those are the only times that you don't have to put your brokerage logo. I don't think it hurts to put it on there in those cases, but those are the only times that you don't have to. Any questions? That one's pretty straightforward, but almost always, if you read the newsletter, you'll have people who are getting in trouble for not putting their brokerage logo. I went in and looked at this first quarter, and there wasn't this time. So that's the first time that I've noticed that there wasn't a brokerage logo issue on there. So that's good. Okay, the requirements and the restrictions for advertising. The name of the brokerage identified, like we said, in an advertisement must be shown the same as shown on state records. So make sure that, like you can't just put your team, you have to show what's on state records. Make sure that that's correct, and watch out if your brokerage changes their name or gets bought out by somebody that you update. A team, group, or other marketing entity which includes one or more licensees shall be subject to the same requirements and restrictions with regard to advertising as an individual licensee. So again, you can put your team name on there, just make sure you also have your brokerage name. If a licensee advertises a guaranteed sales plan, the advertisement shall include in a clear and conspicuous manner a statement that costs and conditions may apply, information about how to contact the licensee offering the guarantee. Any radio or television advertisement of a guaranteed sales plan shall include a conspicuous statement advising if any conditions and limitations apply. So when you're doing some sort of a, put your name in here and you win this or do that, make sure you have everything that you need on there. You have to have your information on there if it's guaranteed. And just make sure that you have this fine print, just like any other thing that people do that's trying to get people to submit their information. Okay, let's just read a few of these examples. Principal broker in Panguitch, Utah, admitted that he advertised the availability of a property in a false, misleading, or deceptive manner and without the written consent of the property owner. Why would somebody want to advertise a property, first of all? What is an agent trying to do when they're able to advertise a property? Diana?
Buyer lead.
Getting his name out there, free advertising.
Okay, Jean, is that what you're going to say?
Buyer lead.
Okay, buyer leads too, right? So you're saying somebody might call on this advertisement and it could be a sold property, it could be not listed anymore, it could be whatever, and they could get buyer leads out of it, right? So leaving their advertisements up even though they should be taken down when they're sold or those kind of things can, there would be incentive to be able to get buyer leads. So just make sure though that you get written permission if you leave up your sign longer than after it's sold. Make sure that you put sold on it, even when you get written permission to leave it up there so that you're not misleading as to the property's availability. So this agent admits that she allowed an advertisement for the sale of property that had already closed and changed owners to remain posted for sale for several months without the consent of the new owner. So same idea. Once it's closed, you have to get permission from the new owner. And be careful, the times when I see people like unintentionally misusing advertisements is on their website. So make sure that you take things down and keep your websites up to date if things have sold so that you're not continuing to advertise a property that's been sold, even if you're not doing it intentionally. You do have to keep that up to date on your websites. Let's see, he admits that he contacted a seller through a group of text messages to solicit the seller as a client, but failed to disclose the status as a real estate agent licensee in his initial contact. What do you need to do when you call somebody as a real estate agent when you're trying to get clients or, you're doing your cold calls, let's say? What do you need to do first thing when you get on the phone with somebody?
Disclose that you're a real estate agent.
Good. Okay. So when you're trying to get leads, you want to make sure that they know that up front. And I always appreciate when people call me and tell me immediately why they're calling. I think it's appreciated. So make sure that you do that and that you disclose why you're calling people. Okay, another agent admitted that she listed a property in which she held a partial ownership interest without the knowledge or consent of the other owner. So all owners have to sign a listing agreement, right? You can't just have a listing agreement with one of the owners. So make sure that you look in when you're signing a listing agreement with somebody that you make sure you know who is the actual owners. What's a way that you can look that up?
Tax ID.
Okay, if you know the tax ID number, you can you can ask title, Rhonda says, that's a great way. And title can do a search on that, and that should be done when you have any kind of a listing. What if it's held in a trust? What do you need to be careful of?
You need to ask for the operating agreement to see who can sign to liquidate the asset.
Okay, we've had a seller's agent who didn't have the ability to sign, and we had a contract with him signing, but it was in a trust, and he wasn't the person that had the ability to sign. What do we have at that point? We're almost ready to close.
No contract.
Correct. Okay, so be super careful that you know who has the ability to sign if it's in a trust or an LLC or a business name. The buyers are going to buy it in their name. We don't allow contracts for the buyer to be in the name of a trust or an LLC. So know that too when you're writing offers for buyers. They'll they'll sign in their own name. You could do a commercial loan and then they could sign but as a residential loan, we don't allow people to have a contract in the name of a trust or an LLC, but they can deed it into that after they close. Okay, good.
I thought you could.
Well, we don't, the buyer can't. The seller can be in a trust name, but the buyer can't.
The buyer cannot be LLC and qualify for the loan.
Not a residential loan. They can do a
They buy
commercial
it as
loan.
the investment property.
Yeah, even if they're buying it as an investment property, it has to be in their name and then they deed it into the trust later.
That's just for a typical residential mortgage loan, a 30-year
Correct.
fixed loan.
Correct.
If you're doing other terms, it's usually commercial, and that's okay to do an LLC
For
or
a
a
commercial.
or corporation or whatever. In those, it's just standard residential loans cannot be in the name of a business or an LLC.
Correct. But they can deed title into that after they close, and we do that a lot too. So, and sometimes people worry about, due on sale clause when you change title like that. That can happen, but I haven't seen it. It's very rare.
A UWM does do that. They will throw a due on sale clause because they did it on 2 of my investment properties. And I just had to send them over documentation showing that no, like it's still me. I'm not selling this as a private sale to somebody else. It was super easy.
Oh, that's good to know. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Oh, Summers wants the slides a little bit bigger. You know what? When I do that, I lose this one. You can't really read it. You're right. But like I've tried to do a slideshow and then it gets messed up. I can try just a minute. I'm not as good at doing that as, let's see, from current slide. And then I have to I have to reshare it because now it doesn't look. Just a second. Let's see which one. Is that better? Shannon? Or Summer, sorry. Yeah.
Mhm.
Does it say sales agent St. George? Is that what it says now?
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's probably the best I can do right now. Sorry.
That's big. I can see that.
Okay.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Blind can't see that now.
The what?
I say a blind can't see that.
I am getting to the point where I can't see small things and it really is not fun. Okay, so this is another one in a stipulated order in April 2023, admitted to having violated Utah administrative rule when he placed a sign on a property prior to obtaining written consent. Again, make sure you have consent before you put any kind of advertisement on anybody's property. Internet advertising without properly identifying the name of the brokerage. I really do recommend that you guys read the quarterly newsletters as they come out because it will, I mean, you're not trying to see who's in trouble necessarily, right? I mean, this is all public information, but the idea being it will help you remember, okay, I need to, that's a good reminder to be careful of that, or that's a good reminder to be careful of something else. And in this quarter, there's a few little changes for appraisals and mortgage and things like that, so that you can keep up to date on what's going on. So you can just Google Utah real estate newsletter first quarter, and I'll pop right up and you can read through that. Here's another one. Admitted that he marketed a property for sale on the MLS and on KSL after the property sold. Remember, again, once it's sold, you need to get it because it says he had previously listed the property with the prior owners. When the transaction closed, he did not have the consent of the new owners to advertise the property for sale. So, you can post that it sold, and I see agents do that a lot, but don't continue advertising without the written consent because it's not for sale anymore. Okay, let's see what this one. Okay.
So then that must be okay that on Zillow they continue to show your sold properties. That wouldn't be considered advertisement, would it?
Well, so on Zillow, if they continue to show it as sold, they still shouldn't have it on there as sold without the written consent of the new owner for very long. I don't know how long they keep it on there. But it's real estate agents that these are focused on, right? We only, these rules can, as you know, apply to real estate agents. And I don't know that they apply to Zillow, but
I thought marketing it for sale when it's sold is not, but if it's sold and it says that it's sold, you're not marketing it for sale. It's kind of just data out there on some of those third party sites. That's not a violation.
okay, that would,
Because it's
does
sold, you're
anybody agree
not
with that?
marketing it to get buyers or telling somebody the house is available to sell. That's what's misleading. If it says that it's sold 6 months ago and they see it on Zillow, it's not for sale. So you're
That's
not
fair.
marketing it for sale, right?
That makes sense. Does anybody agree with that? That makes sense to me. You're right.
Well,
But if
I think
you,
there
but
was
you
more,
can't leave your sign there, right?
right.
Right,
Like that.
right.
Okay. Question me.
But I'm
I
just
think
saying
I
if it's on
was-
Zillow or a third party and it says sold, if it still says for sale and you closed it, you can go in your profile account and mark it closed. As long as it says closed and you're not advertising it like it's available property, it's not a violation.
Okay.
I think I was just more referring to our recent solds. We all have lists on there that people look up to see if that was something that they viewed as advertisement, because it is touting that you sold the property.
It's not advertising that property for sale, and maybe that is the
Oh, I
difference.
gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, thanks. Okay, let's have our first word be advertising. So either write it down so that you can put it in your list, or if you already have your list open, you can just type it into the Google Sheet. But make sure you write down all your words. You need 4 out of the 5. So if you miss one, don't stress too much, but the first word is advertising. Okay. Okay, let's talk about gifts and inducements. What do you guys think about gifts and inducements? Let's go back and have you guys tell me what you think. Can you give a buyer, let's talk about buyer side first. Can you give your buyer, can you say, if you sign BAC with me, I will give you $1,000? Yes or no?
No.
No.
Who thinks, everybody think no? Anybody think
I
different?
think it depends on the house price point that they're purchasing because it can only be a certain percentage of the sales price of the property.
Well, but I don't think you were asking about buying or selling the house. You were asking about getting a buyer agency agreement, right?
Yeah, so, but
So
that's
just
still
to
is,
take
so
them
let's say,
on as a buyer, you
yeah,
can't
if you're
tell them if
saying,
you're right.
right, so if you're saying, if you sign with me, I'll give you $1,000, that's what I'm asking. And that Carol is right. There is a limitation to what you can give in a buyer agreement, like as a, so as an agent, if I say I'm gonna give some of my commission to you, it is limited by the 3%. And that would include the sellers too, right? 3% conventional, 6% government loans, 6% on conventional only if they put 10% down. So
Okay,
there
so
is some limitation with the buyers and with the sellers and the agents and the lenders, all 3 of us together, right? There's limitation percentage, but can you say to somebody who you want to list with you or list or buy, I'll give you $1,000 if you sign the BAC with me.
okay, so that's where I'm a little bit confused because I understand that language gets, caught up in it.
I know.
So if I
know.
actually just say across the board, dude, anybody that takes me on as an agent, I'm giving you $1,000, sign
Yep.
with me.
Yep.
That's illegal. But if you already have agency with them, you can say to them, I am happy to give this towards like as a gift, right? So can you clarify that? Because that's where I'm a little bit hung up in the weeds because I know that there is that trickiness.
So you can say, if you sign with me, I'll give you $1,000. Anybody who signs with me, I'll give you $1,000. And agents do that sometimes, right? You can give them whatever you want. It's limited only because you can't give them at that. Well, you're going to have a certain amount of commission, right? So it's limited by that, but then it's also limited by that amount, either 6% if you put 10% down, or 3% if you put less than that down on conventional, or 6%. But you can say that to somebody. That's your
But,
choice to give away your commission.
but I think the precedent is you have to say upon a successful closing.
Sure.
Like I can't just give you
That's where
money.
I'm like trying
Yeah,
to.
I don't think I can just say, hey, sign this buyer's agency and I'll hand you over $500.
Right.
No.
So
That's
where I
illegal.
knew it was a
But
little
if
bit
I
tricky.
say by signing a buyer's agency upon successful closing, I'm going to credit you $1,000 upon the successful closing, then you can do that. You're still incentivizing them to pick you, but no money's changing hands till the transaction is closed.
Right.
That's
Okay, so is that where it
prior to is illegal.
right?
Like if
So
I
that's
just
where
say,
it was.
hey, I'll give you money, sign this, and here's a check, or here's a gift card or whatever for signing, that's illegal. But if you preface it by saying, upon a successful closing and it's an incentive to use you, you can still incentivize them to sign with you by giving that to them at the closing time. And it
Yeah,
can't
that's what I thought.
exceed
Is that the
yeah, and there's a total limit of gift that's across the board that you can only give X number of dollars or X% of the purchase price. As an agent, that's the gift you can give them. Doesn't matter if even if the lender gives them 3 and you want to give them 1% and that's eligible in your price point of your house, you can still gift them that 1% upon the closing and they still get 3% credit from the lender. Or
That's
whatever,
not,
from the
well, that's not true. You can't gift that. It's combined. So the sellers, the lender, and the real estate agent, it's all combined.
but if I just give you a $500 gift card when it's over, that's my incentive. They can still get 3% of their closing, and I can give them a $500 gift card when I stop by and drop them the keys and meet them at their house.
That's
They
true,
can
as long
still
as
get
it's
that.
not
It's
part
just
of your
cash.
commission and
Right,
it's
as long
not
as it's
part
not
of the
part of the
loan.
commission.
You're
Right.
right. Right. So there's
It's
a
a
lot of
gift
things,
or
you
an
guys.
incentive.
Yes,
right?
there's a lot of things in here, right? If you give them part of your commission, then I need a broker letter, right? But if you just give
Yeah.
them a gift at closing, that's in addition and can be an addition.
Right.
So just be careful. If you're not sure, just call and ask me when you're doing a deal and just make sure that you're not doing something that would be different. The reason why I ask this is because some people don't even think that they can give an incentive. And incentives are different than gifts too, right? And giving your client a gift is different than giving a gift for a referral, which we're going to talk about too, right? And then giving a gift for a referral is different than giving a gift for a solicited referral. And so we just have to make sure that we're clarifying all of these, okay? So Felicia is asking, can you confirm the max gift amount on referrals? So the max gift amount on referrals now is $250. But it has to be unsolicited. Any kind of solicited referral is illegal. Okay, so $250 max on an unsolicited. What's the difference between an unsolicited referral and a solicited referral?
So can I ask a question on that? Because my understanding is, again, I can't post on Facebook, I'm giving $1,000 to anyone who'll bring me a buyer or anyone, like I can't do that, right?
Right. That's
But
solicited.
But I've seen agents say, you can use my moving trailer for 3 days if you purchase this house, or if you bring me a buyer, I will let you use, which I don't know. To me, that's still in kind money, right? It's an item of exchange. It's some kind of, what's the word?
It has value.
Right.
And
So
it
I
has
don't know,
monetary value.
Right.
So it's
that's what
not
I'm wondering.
okay.
Okay. Well, that's what I thought, but I've seen people do that and I'm like,
Mhm.
wow, okay. And I've even seen them park the trailer out. This trailer is yours if you buy with me, or, like this, whatever. And I'm like,
But they can do that.
But
They can do that. That's an incentive to select them as their agent. They don't get it until upon a successful closing, and then they get to use it to move. That's the gift. So
that's
they can
different.
do that.
difference
Yeah.
where is the difference where it's for someone to actually buy the house, and what we're talking about is getting a referral. Like, if you bring me somebody, then you can use my trailer for whatever you want for 3 days. Is that where
Correct.
the difference is?
That's the difference. So like what Carol's saying, that's an incentive to use you as your agent. So they're the actual buyers who are getting that benefit. That's different than saying, if you refer somebody to me and they're a buyer, then you can use my trailer.
Unless the value is $250 or less.
But still though, then that's a solicited. So if you say, if you refer somebody to me, I'll give you that, that's solicited and that is illegal. But if somebody does refer somebody to you and you
Yeah, it's
say,
unwritten. I guess it's unwritten. If your SOI knows that they can use that when they send somebody, that's not solicited. It's
right,
marketing. It's the marketing of it that it is. But if it's word of mouth or whatever, or your client tells somebody else or whatever, it's not print marketing. You cannot print market that.
and you can't say that to somebody.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Okay, so this gets a little tricky and we try to, live outside the gray, but you're gonna see people who just don't understand it or don't realize it or don't care. And so just make sure you're super careful with not offering things that you can't do, right? Are you, Kareshme, do you have a question? Oh, you're on.
So sorry, I do not have it. I just sliced my finger. I'm trying to keep it up because it's
Oh no,
bleeding.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Anyway,
Keep
I'm
your
gonna go
finger
get
up.
something
Okay.
right after the class. So anyway,
Oh shoot.
yeah,
Dang it. Okay, so an inducement gift is permissible and is not an illegal sharing of commission if the principal broker or affiliated licensee offering the inducement gift to a buyer or seller complies with the underwriting guidelines. So again, Carol was talking about, okay, I can bring a gift at closing to my clients, $500 gift card or whatever, and that doesn't matter. If it's part of the contract where you're giving a percentage of your commissions, then your broker is going to have to write a letter saying that that's okay for you to do, and that's still okay. Closing gift is permissible and not an illegal sharing of commissions. So that's kind of what Carol was talking about when we were saying that. But the gift itself, and I think we'll talk about that again in another slide, but it says a licensee may give a gift valued at $250 or less to an individual in appreciation for an unsolicited referral. So just remember, it can't be solicited. You can't tell somebody that if they send you a buyer, you'll give them something. But if they do give you something, then you can reward them. And that can be, like Carol said, kind of a word of mouth that does happen. Okay, again, for credit, if you want to scan this, and I'll put it up at the end of class again too. Okay, for good measure, just remember no lies. Make sure that you don't lie, that you don't misrepresent, that you'll always be truthful in all your advertisements. You'll see advertisements that are kind of bait and switch a little bit, especially in lending. They're not technically illegal, but I don't usually like those kind of advertisements. So you just decide what feels good to you, but be super careful that you're always telling the truth in your advertisements and not misleading anybody. Okay, RESPA. Anybody know what RESPA stands for?
Real Estate Procedures and Settlement Act.
Settlement and Procedures Act. Yep. Thank you. Okay. So what does that mean? Who are the settlement people in a real estate transaction?
title,
Title's one.
The
lender,
underwriter or the closer of the file for the lender.
Okay. So title and lenders.
title, lender, buyer, seller, real estate agent.
So insurance is part of this too. So insurance has to be careful. But I can't go to a title company and give them something for helping me out. I can go to them and say, hey, do you want to go to lunch? We're friends, whatever, right? But I can't give them something for the transaction. Just like as real estate agents, I can't give you something for the transaction. I can take you to lunch as a friend, and that happens. I can drop off a gift just because I like you, but I can't say, like, hey, thanks so much for sending me over your clients. Here's a gift. Okay, then I'm crossing the line. So you won't see us doing that. It's illegal. Basically paying for referrals just like you guys can't. Okay, RESPA prohibits specific practices such as kickbacks, referrals, and unearned fees. For example, Section 8 prohibits any person from giving or receiving something of value in exchange for referrals of a settlement service. Okay, so we just have to be careful that you guys can't give your title companies gifts because they referred a client or vice versa. I even had a friend who was part of title and we closed a lot of deals together and she had a place in Florida and we had become friends and she's like, oh, I would love to be able to let you stay in my place, but that would be super gray because it could look like we're giving a kickback because we're working together. So who decides on title? When you guys bring a client to a lender, your lenders most likely are asking you, who do you want to close with? Right? And so almost always my real estate agents are choosing title.
I think
Okay.
it's buyer choice, isn't?
The buyer chooses too, and most of the time they defer to the agent. Every once in a while, I've had a buyer who has a friend that's in title or a brother or a sister in title, and they choose. But most of the time, I don't know, John, do you have buyers who know that they want to have a certain title company when they're closing?
Well, there are some, but the question is, since there are the buyers are the one they're paying for their title fees, we have to be careful because that could be, like we guiding them to our preferred title company. So the question I always ask the buyers, do you have any preferred title company before I told them this is, the title company I work with. So I believe we have to ask the buyers first before we choose, you know, the title company.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to remember. So you certainly can, and most of the time I would guess that they're going to defer to you and your expertise. But yeah, asking them, do you have somebody you want to use is certainly a good practice. Letta, you're asking to confirm the max percent amounts you can gift a client at closing. So are you talking about for a referral or just if you want to give some of your commission?
Yeah, not the referral. I get the 250 for the referral piece. But yeah, I know you already went over this.
Oh, that's okay. We can go over it again.
The percentage of give back or with a client at closing. And you mentioned
Yes.
it not being more than a certain percentage on different kinds of loans.
Yeah, so on conventional, if you're doing a conventional loan, then you can write down for a primary resident, it's limited to 3% of the purchase price. Or if they're putting down 10% or more, you can go up to 6%. And that would include all the lender credits, the seller credits, and the real estate agent credits or gift of commission added together. Can't be more than that.
With
If
the
you're
approval of your broker, you can reduce your commission and reduce the purchase price. You can, like, let's say if your son want to buy a property, you can reduce the 3% and reduce the price to the 3% and not getting any commission at all. You can do that and you can get the closing cost as well. And I don't think the underwriter will have a problem with that.
okay.
Well, and I've heard that like I can reduce my own commission and then they just don't have as many closing costs. But like as far as like bringing them a gift card with $500 on it, that's completely separate from the commission that
You can buy them a
Correct.
Ferrari if you want.
Sorry, what
Yes.
was that, Gene?
You can buy anything you want as a gift. There is no limit on the gift you can give to the buyer or to the seller.
Okay. So that doesn't fall in with the 250 at all.
No.
That's just for
once you close
referrals.
the deal.
I thought there was a limit of what you can gift them when you're purchasing the property. It has to be after the fact. So if you're wanting to give them a gift card after closing or drop a closing gift off, it has a maximum value that you can do, or maybe it's only a maximum amount for tax purposes that you can get.
Yeah, there's not a max that I know about.
Well, you can give them $1 million if you want to.
Okay, so conventional primary residence, 3%. If they're putting 10% down, it goes up to 6. Investment property on conventional is 2% limited total concessions. And then
Sorry, what was that last part?
total concessions. So like, I mean, I'm just talking about everybody's stuff together that's actually part of the contract. So 2% for investment conventional. And then all the government loans are 6%. So when you're working on an offer, you can contact your lender too, just to make sure, okay, we want to offer this much. Are we over the limit? You know, like, and you can clarify. Feel free to call me even when I'm not the lender on the deal if you want to ask me questions, or James too. Okay. So yeah, like Jean said, if it's inside the contract, these are the limitations. If it's outside the contract and you're just giving them a gift, you can do whatever you want in addition. Okay. Marketing sponsorship. RESPA does not prohibit joint market efforts between a real estate broker and a lender as long as advertising costs paid by each property party are related to the value of any goods and services that they might be received in return. In return. But transactions in which one party pays more than a pro-rata share of advertising costs are prohibited. So let's do some examples of this. Let's say that I, as a lender, want to get in with a brokerage, and I go to Jean, and I say, okay, I want to have an office in your. He works with James, so it doesn't matter. But I'm going to him and saying, I want to have an office at your brokerage, and I'm willing to pay you $5,000 a month for that office. What's wrong?
I would say no, thank you.
No thanks, I work with James. Okay, but what am I trying to do as a lender? What am I trying to get around here?
Well, you're not offering the fair market value of my office. So you're just trying to, I guess, bribe me to give you my business. And that's bribing. So we both may lose our licenses.
Right. Okay, so fair market value is one thing. What about if I say I want to do a co-marketing thing for leads, and I'll pay 50% to the lead source and you pay 50% to the lead source?
We're fine there.
Okay, so one person's not paying way more than another person. We're both going to benefit from this and we're both sharing in the cost. What about if we want to send out some flyers to a farm?
We're fine there too.
Okay, so we're going to share in the cost. Sometimes people will talk about, well, if I just have a little portion on the flyer and the real estate agent has a bigger portion, we can do 25-75. But just the idea that we're both sharing in the cost, those are okay too. So just be careful with things that seem too good to be true, or that one person is shouldering way more of the cost than the other person. Okay. Let's see. Okay, we
Why
talked
would a
about.
settlement
I'm sorry, what, Larry?
in that last screen? Why would a settlement service provider rent space from another settlement service provider?
So let's say that I want to be a part of their brokerage. I might say, okay, I'm going to rent space in your office so that I can be more seen by your agents and I can start to get their business too, right? And I'm going to come in once a week or whatever. That would just give me more visibility. And that's okay to do as long as it's fair market value. But I can't go in and say, I'm going to give you $5,000 to rent space there. I mean, like Jean said, it's like a bribe to say, please give me your business because I'm giving you $5,000 a month.
Okay.
Hey, same thing, $250. Remember that as your referral fees, unsolicited. The key is unsolicited. What about if you, and I think we'll talk about, let's see if we have another slide. If not, okay, let's do our second word. I'll come back to that if we don't have another slide. Referral. So we have two words now. This is second word, referral. And we talked about unsolicited referrals versus solicited. That's really the only thing. You cannot give anything for solicited referrals, but you can give money for unsolicited referrals. Thanks so much for telling your daughter to call me.
Can we email you the words at the end?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about, this is what I was thinking of. Let's talk about affiliated business arrangement. Now you're gonna see this a lot with who? What's a big part of our market that uses lots of affiliated business? Builders. Okay, there's lots of builders that own their mortgage company, new builds. Thanks, Rhonda. They own their own mortgage company, they own their own title company. There's lots of different ones. Now, are builders part of these rules? No.
I am curious about that because that feels like they are crossing every line that we just talked about.
I
There's
know.
not supposed to be an affiliation, like I know that there was a title company in Nephi that was crossing some lines with, I don't remember all the story, but they were the lender, they were the title, they were the insurance, and it was like they offering in-house, but there's a lot of ethics questions. So I'm curious to know.
Yeah, so builders are not at all they don't fall under this category of rules. They're just their own entity, and the real estate mandates that you guys fall under are not applicable to them. They have their own contracts, they have their own stuff. Now, they still can't make you use their people, right? They can't say, in order to buy our house, you have to use this lender and you have to use this title company. But what do they do?
Well, that's interesting because they make the buyers feel like they have to.
Right.
Because
You offer incentives.
you can't
Yep.
get this, we won't give you this, and
Yeah.
you can't have that if they don't use the words. So it does feel like there should be some oversight on that, because they'll even say, if you use an agent, we can't work with you on this level. And it's interesting that they can say those kind of things because they're scare tactics that make the consumer not be able to have all the information or protection. Because let's just be real, if a buyer goes with and I've seen it every time, actually, with every single buyer that I've ever taken through with a builder, if I wasn't there to make sure that everything came through, that builder didn't do everything that they said they would. I even held them like hostage for like an hour at title because they had not sent an email to put the Wayne's code on the bottom. So, it seems like there should be something in place to protect the consumer, because isn't all of this CE course that, we have to take based on protecting the consumer?
It is. It is. So, again, builders they can give incentives, and it does seem like that it takes away the autonomy of the transaction, but that just is the way it is. And so Krishme, for you to say, I'm sitting there and I'm there helping my buyers, I love to hear that, right? I'm making sure that they do that. And that's why your buyers paid you to be part of the transaction. And I love it. You earned your money. So, but yeah, just be aware that builders are going to do that, and you can't, you have your buyers who are like, it's $25,000, right? And I lose lots of deals to builders too because I can't compete with that, and so I just say, I want you to have the house you want, and it's just part of business. So, just know that this is something that they can't. They're allowed to give incentives, but they're not allowed to say you have to use them. But it seems to be one and the same. So just make sure that you're reading through the contracts with your buyers and making sure that they know what they're agreeing to, and that's the best you can do.
Isn't this,
Felicia
how does
said,
this correlate
go
to
ahead.
a regular seller saying the same thing? Because a builder's obviously selling their own property. So, I mean, there's certain things that a builder can dictate as well as a specific seller. I mean, a seller can say you have to be pre-qualified with my mortgage. You don't have to use
Yeah.
them, but you have to at least get pre-qualified by, a trusted professional that I know.
Yeah,
So does that kind of sit in the same category as a builder?
It's exactly
think,
the category.
yeah. Christopher, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and I've called the division of real estate on this. I've talked to Van over in enforcement, and builders get a free pass on everything. They violate RESPA. I don't know if any of you guys saw. You can Google it. Who was it? KUTV or whoever it was did a short little story on it. Builders were putting in their contracts that if the buyer badmouthed them at all on social media, they could come back within a year and take over their home and all this sort of garbage. Well, a real estate attorney was buying a house, looked at the verbiage and was like, no, and sued the builder. But they had all kinds of stuff in their contract that was illegal. It's not enforceable. So builders just get a free pass. There's nothing anybody can do about it. For whatever reason, I don't know. They should have to play by the exact same rules as all the real estate and mortgage professionals and title companies, but they don't. But yes, like you were saying, a seller can technically say, hey, I'll offer you 10,000 as our concessions, but only if you use my preferred lender. And I want my preferred lender to verify, and get pre-approve you too. Like they could do the exact same thing builders do, but most people aren't going to go that route, but they could legally.
But why? Okay, so I'm just trying to figure this out. Why isn't the real estate commission doing something about that? They can. I mean, it's like you just said nobody can do anything about it. Somebody can. Why are they not? Because I've seen the same
The
thing.
real estate commission does not have any precedence over the builders. So they're not held to the same things that we
But
are.
they
So
do
a
have,
lawsuit or something would have to happen from the consumer, just like it did to change those things. The real estate commission can't do
right?
anything to them.
But they do have rights over the forms that are used. So
No,
builders have
they
their
don't
own
have,
forms.
Their own
They have
forms.
their own forms unless they happen to be an affiliate member of the association. That's the only way they can use the association docs.
so
If
but
they
how
pay
is it
for
that they don't
membership.
have like a fraud? I mean, like any regular business can't do that. Any regular, and I've seen that too, where they've put information. We saw that during COVID, where they were trying to jack up prices and because all of a sudden they sold it for too low and they wanted to get the extra $50,000. That was absolutely fraud. I mean, just fraud on every level. And so what I'm wondering is, how is it that every single other business entity has to adhere to the law, just the law of the land, whether it's real estate or not? Why are builders not being held to that? And how is that happening?
They got money, they have power, and that's just how it goes.
Lobbyists.
No,
Yeah, but they
they're
bribe
really,
they have money.
Bruce.
Although some, hey, we'll just quit building.
Yes, I'd like to put a comment on that. The legislature has put limited the powers of the real estate division, and the real estate division is only uh, looking at the licensed real estate agents. And if we have a problem with that, we need to go and contact our representatives and see if we can get those changed. But I'm sorry that's basically the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, there really isn't much we can do, and it is frustrating. But we're gonna move on because there isn't anything I can do about
Ask a
it.
question. It
But it
says,
is frustrating. Elena?
yeah, it says real estate brokers can't refer business to an affiliated title company. Now, I work with one title company and I know the title office is the best. And what's wrong with referring business to the title company? I don't get any kickbacks.
Well, so it says without disclosing that relationship to their customers. So affiliated means you own it.
Oh, I see.
Right. So you can say, no, I really like this title company. You can
Yes.
choose your own, but I really like them, right? You can't force them to use your title company. But
Sure.
yeah, so real estate brokers cannot refer business to an affiliated title company without
Okay.
disclosing it. So I had a guy call me the other day and wanted me to work for him, and he actually owned the mortgage company. The real estate agent owned the mortgage company, right? And I said, how do you get around RESPA? He said, well, we have lawyers. Okay, well, I don't want to work in that space, right? But there's always going to be people who are trying to circumvent the rules. And anyway, that's just kind of how it is. But yeah, just make sure that if you own an ownership in a company, that you're not recommending them without telling people that you have an ownership in the company. So that's what the affiliated means. And you will see the builders saying they have an affiliation with them. They know they own them, and then they give the incentives, and that's just kind of how that works. But it is illegal to not let people know. Lenders cannot require borrowers to use a particular affiliated settlement service provider. However, they can provide financial incentives to do so. For example, a home buyer may be able to take advantage of affiliated services at a discounted rate. So you can offer that incentive, you just can't require it. So RESPA protects consumers who are seeking to become eligible for a mortgage loan. RESPA does not protect loans such as business, commercial, or agriculture. So just remember that when you're doing a commercial loan, RESPA does not cover that. most of the time, I know a lot of you do commercial loans too, so that's a whole different ball game, but for residential loans, RESPA does protect. Okay, we're getting any other questions about RESPA or anything like that before we move on to the Code of Ethics? Okay, let's talk just a little bit. I know there's a whole ethics class, but let's just go over a few things for the Code of Ethics. Agents have to act ethically at all times. Do not deliberately mislead the owner to market value to secure a listing. Okay, that's another way to get people's business, right? But you don't want to go in and say, I think that it's worth 100,000 more than it's actually worth. That's illegal. Do not deliberately mislead buyers as to the savings and benefits of their services. So, you tell them what you can legitimately do, and you will find there's people in every, walks of life, in every business area that will try to offer more than what they can do. I really like to work with people who are saying exactly what they can do and who make sure that they can come through on anything they say that they can come through. I never want my buyers at the end to think, well, you said this, but you couldn't do this. If I said something, it happens. And so that's the kind of ethics that we want to see happening. We're not misleading anybody. We're telling them how it is. Now, sometimes I have other lenders who I go head to head with that lower their fees on their loan estimate. And when it gets to the closing table, it's different. And my buyers pick that based on what they said. But I always want to be super transparent. Okay. Article 2, realtors shall avoid exaggeration, misrepresentation, or concealment of pertinent facts relating to the property or the transaction. Okay. So we're just talking again about being careful that you're super honest in everything that you do with your buyers and your sellers. Let's go over this really quick. I know I talk about it in some of my other classes, but who is your family members that you have to disclose? Okay, let's talk about first what's the actual rule, and then let's talk about why you wouldn't just always disclose any kind of familial relationship.
So the rule's immediate family. So that'd be your siblings, your parents, your children. That's your immediate family.
Good.
Outside of that, your in-laws are not your immediate family. They're an extension of your family, but not immediate. So your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, those are not immediate family members, cousins, whatever.
What about grandparents?
Yeah, not your grandparents.
Not
it's
right
just your nucleus, right?
Good. Good. Okay, she's right. Why would you not just disclose any kind of familial relationship? Does it seem like a good practice just to disclose any kind of familial relationship?
I've always wondered, honestly, why it matters.
Okay.
So if somebody could answer why it matters, if I'm selling my mother's house, I may be closer to my best friend than I am to my mother, but I don't have to disclose that relationship. But I do have to tell you that's my mom that's selling her house. We're still operating within our code.
I agree. That's
still
exactly
doing all the contracts.
We're
We're still showing the properties. Who cares if the buyer is my family? I just wanted to know, why does it matter that we're disclosing that, but we're not disclosing, like, my best girlfriend has been my girlfriend for 30 years and we take trips together and our kids are, whatever. Why not that? And why just family?
Anybody want to tackle that real quick before I say what I think?
I will.
Okay.
I guess I assumed it was more for like if you're selling a house and then all of a sudden somebody walks in the door that is somebody very close to you, like, I don't know, your grandma or your best friend maybe, but if they walk in and they're working with your buyers, I don't know, it feels, I don't know about legally, but it feels like you should be upfront with, hey, this person that wants to buy your house is a good buddy of mine. But that's
But you're all operating on contracts. I guess my point is, why does it matter? It's my good buddy, my mom, the felon down the street that's not a felon, whatever. Why does it matter?
And it feels like they're also making us disclose information that the buyer or the seller maybe doesn't want to have disclosed. So there's two parties. It's not just us.
Right.
So the way that I've been told and explained it to is that you might do something different with a family member. And I get your point, Carol, that you might do something different with your best friend than you would do with your mom. I get that point. But they can't just say to disclose any kind of relationship with anybody, right? Obviously, you know your buyers a little bit. But the idea being that you might do something different. And if there were some problem later and it was told that you had done something different and you hadn't disclosed that it was your mom that you were trying to negotiate for, then that could be something that would open you up to some sort of lawsuit where they're trying to prove that you'd done something different. But we don't, I mean, that's just an opinion, right? We
Yeah,
all
I
have
mean, I guess I
opinions.
don't understand what you would do different. Cut your commission maybe, but that's going to be on the settlement statement. I might cut my commission for my best friend or whatever. So I guess what would you be doing different that would need to be disclosed for?
So I have an example that we use in some of our other classes where there was a discipline action that was done because the seller neglected to notify the seller's agent told their sellers to accept an offer, and that offer came from their family member. And there was another offer that was better, right? And so they were trying to help their family member get the deal.
That falls under our code of ethics, which is already there. We were never supposed to do that, period. So like if that were to happen, then it would automatically be a report.
Yeah,
But
would
if
you do
the
that?
sellers know that, they might look into that more. So like,
But I don't have to say, this is my very best friend. I wouldn't want her to get the house. So you don't have to disclose that, but I have to say, this is my mom.
I know. And that's just
would
the
your
rule.
action be the same for your best friend as it would your mother? Most likely. I mean, and the other thing I have a question about is, let's say it's an LLC or an entity, and your family is a signer. They want you to disclose that your family is an owner of the LLC. Well, didn't we just break the veil without a court order? So where does that end? Like if my mom is buying it in her name, okay, great. But let's say they're buying it in their LLC and that's not public knowledge. And that LLC is, they're signers or they're owners. If we disclose that, we just violated their protection without a court order. So where does that draw?
No, and we just have to follow the rules the best we can and what you feel good about. Diana, did you have a quick comment about this?
Yeah, I think that it's important I never want to put myself in a situation where I'm accused of preferential treatment. And I'm in a situation right now where I have a listing for my in-laws, and there are 9 of them. And I disclose it with every potential buyer because I just don't ever want to put myself in a situation where I can be accused, like I say, of giving them special favor. And our world is so crazy, anything can happen, and anything that I can do to protect myself is a good thing.
And it is for your protection. That is, if you look at it, this is for my protection, and you're more than welcome to disclose that it's your best friend too, for your own protection. You don't have to, but you're more than welcome to. Thank you. Christopher, do you have another comment?
I have a comment.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. What I was going to say was regarding the whole LLC thing and breaking the veil, but that's commercial real estate, and these rules don't apply to commercial real estate. So, you know what I'm saying? And I think the big reason for it is it comes down to fraud prevention, right? Like mortgage lenders, you're not really allowed to do your family's deals. Why? Well, because they don't want you committing mortgage loan fraud, right? So it's kind of the same principle where you need to disclose, hey, this is my close family member, because there is a higher chance you would commit fraud or do something you shouldn't be doing just because they are close to you.
Yeah.
Versus John Doe buyer you don't know that you met, that's a Real Geeks lead or something. And I think that's the reason behind it.
Right. And so again, like if you want to disclose any kind of relationship with anybody, I don't think it hurts. Like if you're representing the sellers and your best friend comes to buy the house, I would disclose that to my sellers so that there's nothing that they could do to hurt to feel like you didn't handle things well. Elena.
No, I was just saying, trying to say that we shouldn't die on this hill. If it's required, just disclose. It's a small addendum. I always disclose if I'm buying a house, I'm saying I'm related to the whatever, or the agent is the purchaser or related to the purchaser, whatever. You just check whatever is required. Why
Yeah.
are,
But and
my
you can just
question is,
there's not an addendum for somebody that you know really well, but you can tell them.
yeah. My question is
Um,
about the 1031 exchange, because it somehow gives buyers and sellers the uh, erroneous feeling that it's a stress transaction, because sometimes it is, because it's time sensitive. Do we really need to disclose the 1031 exchange all the time?
yeah, you don't have to, as far as I understand, but it's always a good idea because otherwise they don't, there's just so many ways that that could go wrong for your buyers, and so it protects your buyers, and it's just always a good idea.
But
I
we
don't
don't
have
have to.
that in here.
But
As
we don't have to.
I mean, I don't have that. I've never seen that in any of the rules that you have to disclose a 1031, but there is a form for it because it's a big deal, right? Closing on time and having,
Right.
all the things that a seller might have to do with you if you're buying it.
Mm-hmm.
You just want them to know up front and be aware.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so equality, this one's a really good one. Notice that they've changed this a little bit, sexual orientation, gender identity. Just be aware of the things that are in here and be careful not to discriminate against anybody. Sometimes you can, this is just an interesting one that I think is really good to think about in that there might be ways in our community where you might be discriminating and not even really realize it. So just be careful, how you talk about things in our community and the things that you bring up that everybody may not be exactly on the same page, and so just kind of be careful.
But we do have, just so everybody knows, there is a Utah law, something 14, that prevents anyone from discriminating against you should you not agree with the social narrative that's going on. So you have religious protections and beliefs, that's all protected to keep you from having any backlash should you not agree with whoever is your client. I'm not saying that and that falls into, you have the right to speak your religious affiliation. I don't know what that means as far as I'm sure someone will say, but that's hate speech because you didn't call me the right pronoun. However, by that law in Utah, regardless of which, business orientation we're talking about or affiliation, it prevents you from not being able to practice your religion.
Okay, so that everybody can interpret that how they want. Okay, realtors shall be honest and truthful in their real estate communications and shall present a true picture in their advertising. We've said this over and over, but obviously it keeps coming up in different articles. The offering of premiums, prizes, merchandise, discounts, or other inducements to list, sell, purchase, or lease is not in itself unethical, even if receipt of the benefit is contingent on listing, selling, purchasing, or leasing through the realtor. Remember, we talked about that as a client. However, realtors must exercise care and candor in such advertisement or other public or private representation so that any party interested in receiving or otherwise benefiting from the realtor's offer will have a clear, thorough, advanced understanding of the terms. Just make sure everybody understands the terms. Let's talk about websites really quick. What time is it? Okay, we're doing okay. So the standard of practice, the obligation to present a true picture and representations to the public includes information presented, provided, or displayed on realtors' websites. Realtors shall use reasonable efforts to ensure that information on their website is current. So remember we talked about this, and we talked about making sure that you update on your website if something has sold. Just make sure you put sold so you're not advertising a property for sale that has already sold. So just make sure your websites are up to date and that anything you're listing there is accurate and whether or not it's sold or still an active listing. And then it just says, make sure you promptly correct it when you become aware of it. So just do your best and make sure that those are always up to date. Website shall disclose the firm's name and state of licensure in a reasonable and readily apparent manner. Make sure your websites have your brokerage listing on them. Oh, Colleen says this is not part of this class, but I do believe you have to disclose a 1031 exchange as an IRS requirement. Okay, that's good. I think you should, and she's saying that you do have to, so be careful of that. Okay, for credit today, again, you're gonna either email, click on the form, or scan this to get to the code. We've given out 2 words so far. Okay, let's talk about any other questions about advertising that I didn't go over before
I
we move
missed
on?
that last word.
You said that slide. Sorry.
There's one, we've already given 2. You didn't get the second one?
No.
Oh,
Can you show your email again, please?
I
yeah.
wasn't fast enough. I grabbed my phone, but it wasn't.
Oh, for the second one, referral.
Hold on.
ejohnson@securityhomemortgage.com, or you can send it to James too. Okay, I'll put it on again at the end. Okay, let's talk about ways to be successful in 2023. It should say 2025. I didn't update that. Okay, attitude and action. We're going to talk about what's your one thing, success, goals and clarity, mindset. There's a lot of them here. We won't get through them all for this class, but try to just make it a point to pick something out today that you can improve on. One thing that you can improve on that will help you be more successful in 2025. Okay, here's a success formula you can write down. F times R times C3. Okay, so frequency times reach times credibility. That's the one I like the best. So I'm just going to do credibility today. We used to only have 1 and now we have 3 and it gets me confused. So credibility. Okay, so frequency, how many times do you reach out to people? What's the magic number? Right? Is there one? Some people try to do it once a month. Some people try to do it once a quarter. Some people try to do it every few weeks, right? But figure out what works for you and make sure that you're reaching out enough so that they always think of you when they think of a real estate transaction or they need real estate, but not too much that they ask to be removed from your list. Okay? Your reach is your SOI, your database, right? How many people are in your database? And you want to make sure that you're adding to that all the time. Your success is going to be directly proportionate to the quality and size of your database. Okay, so make sure that almost clients are in your database, that you're reaching out to them, past clients that you're reaching out to them, and everybody in your database may not be the same frequency. And then your credibility. You should be spending some time every day on your credibility, learning, watching classes, CE classes, reading books. We haven't done keyword 3 yet. So make sure your credibility is always improving. Who has seen everything there is to see in real estate? Raise your hand. Okay. It's fascinating how I see something I never thought I would see, right? And I'm sure that's going to happen for you. There's no way to see everything that's possible. There is always something to learn about. The market's changing, the rates are changing. You could learn more about rates. You could learn more about investment properties. There's so many things to learn about. So make sure you're continuing to learn, and your credibility is super important as far as your success is concerned. Okay. What are your success routines? Everybody take a minute and write down, what are your success routines right now? There's no right or wrong here, but what things are you doing to get success? Are you reaching out to people every day? Do you have time where you're every day spending on getting new clients and calling and sending emails? What is your success routine, and what are you doing to get more clients? What are you doing to keep your clients? What are you doing to get more listings? What are you doing to get more buyers? Okay, and write something down. If there's something that you find that you're like, there's a gap, that's something to take a note of. Is there something that I could be doing better? Is there something that I could be more consistent at? Okay, think about what's failure for a minute. What is failure to you? Anybody want to share? What is failure to you?
Failure is the excuse.
Okay, it's an excuse.
Don't think
Not
that there is
trying.
any
Not
failure.
trying.
I don't think there is failure. I think that anything that happens in life, you can learn from it and change to do better.
I love that.
Failure is this market.
Oh, okay. Now that could get you in trouble, Elena, if that's your mindset, right?
I'm already in trouble.
Okay. Okay, well that's something you can work on, your mindset, and that this is still a good time to buy and that there are people out there buying. Felicia says failure is necessary to progress and learn. Okay, so if you think about the successful people have failed more times than the unsuccessful people have even tried. Let me say that again. Successful people have failed more times than the unsuccessful people have even tried. So keep in mind that you're going to have failures, you're going to fall down, you're going to feel beat up. Sometimes I feel like I'm a boxer in a ring and I'm beat up over deals, or somebody went to a builder and I didn't get that deal, whatever it is. But you keep going. You never give up. In my mind, the only failure is giving up. So if you never give up, you're going to eventually succeed if that's what you want. First attempt in learning is to fail. Good. Not meeting your goals. Okay, Christopher, that could be one. And what do you do if you don't meet your goals? Right? Then can you turn that around and say, okay, I'm not meeting my goals. Where is the disconnect here? Okay, quitting equals failure. Good. Okay, lots of good things here. If I go back a little bit, Larry said answer every phone call immediately. That's something that he could do to be more successful. I think that's a great thing. I don't know how many times I call real estate agents and they don't answer their phone and they don't call me back. So make sure you're not one of those. Okay. Always adding contacts by meeting new people every day. Guy said that's a great one. So think of something that you can do better and focus on one thing. Good. Don't give up. Elena, in this market, you can find a buyer, you can find a seller. So work on mindset, because mindset can kill your motivation, and that's okay. Sometimes we do feel like we're in a boxing ring and we're getting beat down. And then you go, okay, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes to feel sorry for myself, and then I'm going to get up and keep going. What's one thing that's hard as agents? And it's actually the same thing that makes you want to be an agent. Can anybody think of something that's hard for agents but also makes you want to be an agent and is the reason a lot of people are agents?
The relationships with the clients and the people.
Okay, I love that, Cami. Thanks.
It's an income.
It's an income.
I like selling houses, but I hate promoting myself and calling and get lost signal.
Okay, that's hard, right? Getting told no is hard, and you have to be able to handle that in this business. What
Because
about
there is really no, how to say that? There is no path to getting clients without telemarketing all the time and being a pest. And it's just not me. I don't know.
okay? So
Flexibility.
what if you switch your mindset to, I actually have a new marketing guy, and he came in and he's like, okay, I'm calling all these same people over and over again, and I don't want to be annoying, right? Elena being a pest, right? And I
Mhm.
told him, what if you shift your mindset to, this is such a good opportunity for you to meet with, if he's trying to make appointments with me, right? This is such a great opportunity for you to meet with Eden. You're going to love working with her. I don't care how many times I call you, I'm going to keep calling until I can talk to you about this great opportunity. And so, Elena, instead of feeling like a pest, what if you kind of switch that mindset to, I am an amazing real estate agent, and I know that I can have a good, you'll have a good experience with me. And so I just want to make sure that you know about this opportunity. So it's a little tweak, right? But
Yeah.
sometimes all we need is a little tweak in our mindset to help us do better.
You
Hey,
gotta
you come
offer a
from
value. You can't
You
just
offer
call
value.
people. You can't just call people and they get sick and tired of you. Eventually, they won't even want to talk to you. The goal is having a conversation and let them ask you about the real estate rather than you calling them like an old-fashioned way. Do you know anybody want to sell or buy or want to have somebody like you? Blah, blah, blah. They all heard that. You need to be personal. sometimes I make notes of my last conversation. So when I call them back, I ask them about what happened. So, or they were going to a trip, or they were on a soccer game, or did the daughter have it? They got a new dog. I don't know, whatever that is. I open up a conversation with that and let the conversation lead to the real estate rather than starting with a real estate. Then next time they see your number, they're gonna block you. They said, forget about that. I don't want to hear about this anymore. So
There's
that
a
been my
really
experience. So
That's really good, John. There's a really good book called Blue Fishing, if you want to write that down, that talks about that, where it's a way, some that doesn't come easy for all of us,
And I
right?
think
And that's okay if it doesn't come easy for you, and you can learn to be better at connecting with people. And anyway, that's a good book about noticing what people like and being able to talk about those things.
and I think too, if you come from contribution and you value the relationship, the rest shows up. If you worry about calling them just to get a lead or just to get a listing or somebody's going to buy it, you're going to be disappointed. But if you call them and nurture the relationship and provide value to them, they're going to call you. They're going to refer you to their people because you might talk to them, but they talk to 10 or 20 other people that might be interested in buying or selling. So they sell you. So if you just also come from the mindset of contribution and value and relationship, the business shows up by natural effect of what you're doing. Instead of always asking for business, ask for the relationship, ask for the trust. Then they're going to use you just by natural gravity of that, and they're going to have all their friends and family use you as well.
Yeah, I like that. So
Mhm.
cultivating relationships is super key for both lenders and real estate agents, very parallel. Larry, I like what you said, control over time. This is the thing that I think uh, and Diana, it's similar to what you were saying, money is good, but you cannot control when you get paid. So your control over time, right, Larry, if I'm understanding you correctly, and the thought process is people love to be in real estate or in these kind of industries where you get to control your time. It's not a 9 to 5 job that you have to sit at the desk and make sure that you're there every second and be there present at that time. You have more freedom, but so that's the good part of it. It's also the hard part of it. There is no boss saying you have to be here. There is no person saying make sure you do your marketing, right? You are in control, and it can be the pro and the con to being in real estate. So be really careful that you have some sort of a structure into when you are doing the things you need to do. And you're right, Diana, it is hard. You can't always know when your paycheck is coming, and that can be hard. Rhonda says helping others, but it's such an emotional experience. It is. And when you get down to the closing table and something is blowing up, and it can be really, really, really stressful. I was at Title the other day and they said that they had to go back 20 years to a divorce to get somebody to sign because it had not been recorded correctly. So make sure you're working with people who are looking into those things. I'd never heard of that. But here you have somebody who 20 years ago has the power to blow up a relationship and a transaction. Um, Christopher, just realized we're supposed to be writing down keywords. Christopher, I said that at the beginning.
I don't know. Sorry, my bad.
You always have to write down the keywords so that you can get credit. You've been here the whole time. Advertising is the first word, referral is the second word. Make sure you guys all have those written down. Okay, that's how the I can't ever think of the right words, but the people who govern CE classes make sure that we aren't just giving CE to anybody who just shows up and isn't paying attention. So I want to continue doing these on Zoom. And I think sometimes they send moderators, so we just want to make sure that we're paying attention. Okay, let's give out our third keyword, and then we have about another 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and then I'll give the last two. So our third keyword is going to be, let's see where it is on here. It might be the next one. Nope. Let's do keywords. Just write keywords down. We always have keywords on CEs on Zoom. Okay. So we've given out three. The third one is keywords. Okay, when you're thinking about a system, just keep in mind that you want to go full circle. So you have a desire. I want to make so much money in real estate. Kind of the same idea as a goal. Then you're going to have your strategies. How can I get to that goal? What am I going to have to do to sell 24 houses this year? What am I going to have to do to sell 30 houses this year? What am I going to have to do to sell 5 houses this year? Whatever it is that you need to do. And then you start working on those. And then you're always continuing to look at them, tweak them, figure out what gaps are in there, what's not working, what is working, and continue and improve. And then you go back to that desire full circle. And then you might make it to that desire, and then you start a new one. So whatever it is that you is speaking to you, oh look, my fourth word is right there, and I don't want it to be. Yeah, so make sure that you write down one thing that you could change this, do better. Okay, we don't want to have too many things. Okay, here's a success formula. You can choose if you like it or not, but if you've had a coach before, that's always a really good thing, especially for newer agents, but even agents who are like, I want to take it to the next level. I've done pretty good and I want to take it to the next level. Find somebody who's taken it to the next level and ask them if they'll be your accountability partner. I'm going to try spending an hour each day prospecting, and I want to make sure that I prospect. Can I text you after I get my prospecting done? Keywords was our third word. I hope nobody's moderating me today. Because I just keep telling the keywords over and over again. I think it's okay though. Okay, keywords. Clarity. Make sure you have your goals defined. Mindset. We talked about this with Elena. How can you fix your mindset so that you feel like this is a good time to buy, so that you're positive in your mindset? You are your biggest enemy sometimes, right? We can be our biggest enemy. If we tell ourselves we can't do something, we won't. And so make sure that you are giving yourself the benefit of the doubt and figuring out ways to be successful and not limiting yourself by the things you tell yourself. Build habits. There's lots of good books about building habits, and tiny habits usually are the best, right? I'm going to change something little and it's going to compound. And over time, those tiny changes are going to make huge differences in our lives. Kind of
Make
like
your
when
bed.
you just, sorry, what?
Make your bed.
Make your bed. There is a book about make your bed every morning. You're right. Um, so yeah, there's little things you can do that can make huge differences. It's kind of like when you start to exercise, you don't see any difference the first few days, even the first few weeks, even sometimes the first few months. And then all of a sudden, all those efforts of daily consistency will shoot up and you'll see a difference, and people will start saying, "Wow, have you been exercising? Oh, wow, you look like you've gained some muscle, whatever." Um, so sometimes, like today, if two of you go home and decide to do marketing for an hour, if that's your goal, and both of you do it, who's gonna, well, let's say both of you do it and somebody else doesn't. After today, are you gonna see any difference? The person who did it versus the person who didn't? Maybe not. But what about if the person who does it for 3 months consistently every single day? By the end of those 3 months, there's gonna be a difference. Okay, so we can't always see the difference that very first day, doing something one time, but over time, building habits will make a huge difference in your success and in the things that you can accomplish. Increase your skill set. Remember, we talked about this. Make sure that you do things to be more credible. Make sure you're always learning. Lose the stories. Jean said something about failure as an excuse. Make sure you're not giving yourself excuses to not be successful. Just try to remove those from your vocabulary. And then massive focused action. You can have all the good mindset skills in the world, but if you're not doing things, you're not going to see the success. So make sure that your power hour, if you don't have any deals right now, maybe your power hour is 4 hours a day of prospecting. If you have lots of deals, maybe it's 1 hour. So kind of notice what you need and then always be willing to improve and tweak, especially when you hear things that somebody else is doing that could be good. Remember, we do have those elite agent series every month. So when you see those, sign up for them, because even if you don't come, we'll send you the link and you can learn from these top agents who are willing to share their experiences with us every month. Okay, so coach or accountability partner, we talked about that. Clearly define your goals. One story that I always like to tell about a coach or accountability partner is with Michael Jordan. You've probably heard it where there was a guy that wanted to come in. I can't remember his name. I'm not a super huge sports fan, but he came in and wanted to give like all the players on the Bulls an opportunity to have him help them coach and improve their game. And the only person that responded to him was the only person who he didn't give a flyer to. He didn't give one to Michael Jordan because he didn't think he needed his help. But Michael Jordan picked it up off the ground and he was the only person who called him. So he was at an elite point and he still could learn from other people. And so don't think that you're so good that you don't have anything to learn, that you can always learn things and always benefit from somebody else's experiences.
Did
Um,
you splash through the fourth word? Because I seen the fourth word and then that, and I was like, that was like literally like 2 seconds.
I I did. I'll give the
Okay.
fourth and fifth word in like when we're ready to end in like
Oh, okay. I was just like, I wanted to make sure that I was like, I was like, that was fast.
no. I know,
Okay.
I
Was
just skimmed past
coach.
it. Yeah,
My
you can
God,
get
it just happened so fast. And you did, I was like, is that our word?
no, I'll give it here in 10 minutes when we're ready to be done. Okay. For ultra successful people, when they decide on something, it's done. End of story. Goal will be achieved no matter what. Nobody's getting in their way. No discussion. The end. Ultra successuls have this finality that when a decision is made, that goal is as good as done. So that's the kind of person that you want to get to. When I decide something, I'm going to make it happen. And I'm not, there's certainly going to be ups and downs. There has been for me when I've tried to accomplish my goals. And there's days when you just want to quit. But what is your why? Write this down. What is your why? What, when you have a hard day, keeps you going and keeps you succeeding and keeps you from quitting like so many others do? That's what I want for each of you, is to have something that's so passionate, that you're so passionate about, that keeps you going even at your hardest days, because you cannot live in a world where you don't succeed. So think about something that can be that powerful for you, that makes it so that you never want to give up and you never do give up. Christopher says, I think coaching is the most important tool you can have. Yeah. If you can learn from other people who've been there, that's the best place to learn. And you can get ideas from people who've done what you want to do. Again, what is your unstoppable drive? Why do you do what you do? Make sure you have it. I always like to, Christopher said his family. That's great. That's what keeps me going too. I have kids who need help and kids who need things, and I want to make sure that I'm the person that can help them. That's great. My dad was there for me when I was in a really bad position, and I want to be able to help my kids. I never want to not be able to help them when they're in that position. So that's what keeps me going too. It's great. I like to show this as a mindset. This is wishful thinking, and you see wishful thinking and reality, right? I wish that it was this way, right? We all wish it was this way. I decide something and I get right to it, but it's not. It's more, I love thinking about, okay, uninformed optimism. I'm so excited, and we'll see lots of agents who get to this, who jump in the market and they're like, okay, I'm going to be super successful. I've seen other people do it. This has got to be pretty easy. I can get people to buy with me. And that's your uninformed optimism. And then I just went to lunch with an agent the other day, and he's like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. Why am I not getting deals yet? And I said, well, it's harder than you think to get people to trust you, especially when you're new, right? And so then you have informed pessimism, where you, okay, now I realize how hard it is. And I'm like, am I really going to be able to do this? And then you have a moment of crisis. And there's two paths you can take. You can either get to your objective. It's still not a straight line, right? It's up and down. So you're going to have up and downs, but you're moving in that direction. Or people give up. And it's not for everybody. So just know that we're going to have ups and downs, just like anything that's worth fighting for. You're going to have ups and downs. And so make sure you keep going. This is one of my favorite things. I have a buffalo in my office that I bought for Christmas. Are you going to be a buffalo or a cow? Okay. Now, if you look it up, it's kind of fun to read about what do cows do versus what do buffalo do when there's a storm coming. And buffalo go into the storm and spend less time in the storm. Cows run away from the storm and spend more time in the storm. So think about yourself as a buffalo. When something hard comes, just head straight into it. finish it, get through it, and spend less time in that space of like frustration or stress or anxiety. So be a buffalo. Your daily systems will take you to your goals. It's like getting to a destination on a map. First, you pick where you're headed, your goals, then you figure out what streets and exits you need to take to get there, and then you follow the map. It's super clear when you're finding a location on a map, but in life, it's not that clear cut, at least until you understand all the steps. So, whatever your goal is that you've written down, whatever thing you're going to work on, what do you need to do to make sure that that happens? Build the habits. We talked about that. Oh, look, I went right past that again. It's okay, Carol. I'm going to give both the fourth and the fifth in 10 minutes. 5 minutes now. Okay. I would recommend 30 minutes of what I call sharpening the saw. And James talks about this a lot too, where you spend 30 minutes a day either reading a book about real estate, learning about something new. You could go over your ethics stuff. You could go over anything that you want to learn more. But at 30 minutes a day should be time that you're spent be improving your skills, improving what you know, learning something new. If you don't know about 1031s, make that a goal to learn about 1031 so that you can talk about those. Um, Lose the stories and excuses that are holding you back. That's super huge. I know I've said it before in this class and in other classes, but make sure you lose the excuses. Excuses are only going to hold you back. And then massive focused action. You're going to have to make sure that you do all the things that you need to be successful. And if you're not successful, figure out why. What am I missing? Um, Let's see. The only way to beat fear is to take massive action daily. I want to tell you one story and then I'll be finished. But when I first started in this business, it was super hard for me. It wasn't like super easy for me to, like Elena was saying, to sell yourself, right? That's what you guys are doing as agents, is selling yourself and saying, like, I can help you and I can make sure that you have a good experience, and you're selling yourself and your skills. And it wasn't easy for me and it didn't come naturally. And when they asked me to be a loan officer, I was like, well, I mean, I guess it's the only way that I'm going to accomplish my goals. I'm never going to accomplish my goals by being a transaction coordinator. There's no room to go up, and I'm starting over and I'm already 50, right? I don't have very long. But I remember one time when I sat down with one of the first agents, because what do? I market to real estate agents. You guys are marketing to clients, but I'm marketing to real estate agents. I'm trying to sell myself as a good lender and somebody who's going to take care of you and has something to offer, going to make sure your deals are done. And I remember my toes curling in my shoes, and my hands, I was like under the table, like poking myself with my fingernails. I was so stressed to do that. Now, what could I have done in that moment? In that moment of fear, what could I have decided to do? I basically had two options: either do it, even though it was hard and uncomfortable, or quit, right? And still stay as just a transaction coordinator, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that wasn't going to be a way that in, the 15 years or so that I have left to work, that I was going to be able to accomplish my goals. So when something comes up that's uncomfortable, don't just turn away from it, because it could be the thing that you need to do to go to the next level. And usually something that takes you to the next level is uncomfortable. There's very few people who just always feel comfortable doing anything new. I actually don't know any. Maybe you guys do, and that's fine. That's great for them. But for most of us, when we're doing something that we haven't done and we don't feel super 100% comfortable, it's going to be uncomfortable. And it could be really uncomfortable depending on who you are. I remember when I first taught my first CE class in person, my scalp was literally bubbling from my anxiety. Now, again, I could have just decided I'm not going to do it. And now I enjoy teaching and I don't really feel anxiety the same way that I did at first. So make sure that if fear's coming up, if anxiety's coming up, that you make a decision to be a buffalo, head into the storm, go to the next level, you guys. I want you to all be successful, and I think we can be successful together.
Be a wolf. Go hunt the buffaloes.
Okay. Okay, you can do that too. So I hope you've learned something from this class. I hope you've taken something. Make sure you're doing your advertising correctly. We talked a lot about that, but also Christopher says, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Best thing I ever heard from my old SGM. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And let's write down our last 2 words, and then I'll stay on for a few minutes and show the QR code again so that you can get those all sent over to me for credit. And then enjoy your weekend. Let's do coach for number 4. And let's do this mindset for number 5. So coach is word number 4, coach, and then mindset is word number 5. And then let's go back up to our QR code. Here we go. So either email me, scan the QR code, or click on the link and get those words over to me so that I can get
Thank you.
You're welcome, John. Have a
So
good
if we
day.
submit that second link, we're good though.
Yes, if you clicked on the link,
Yeah.
that's the same thing.
Okay.
Thank
Oh,
you very much.
see it now.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
just finishing. I'm in a
Thank
CE
you.
class.
Great
Thank
class.
you. You're welcome. Glad you
I
could
need to
come.
work
Have a good
that.
weekend.
Hot chai.
Steven.
If anybody has any questions, I can sit here and answer a few questions too. Otherwise, you're free to go.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
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 Doug, the last 2 keywords are coach and mindset. Thank you. Okay, does anybody else need me? Did you guys get your words submitted?
Hold on just a second.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, question, do you need my license number or you already have that?
Yeah, the license number is good. If you go through the QR code, it will ask for the license number, and that helps. Sometimes we can look it up, but it just helps us get things done
I think when
faster.
I logged in, no, I when I registered, I had the license number because I have to run downstairs. Well,
That's okay. I don't think it asks for it when you register for the class, but it does when you do
okay,
the
I'll give you the license in a second.
Okay.
I have a quick question about my license number. I don't know if the last 2 are zeros or O's. Does that matter?
No, I think it is O's. I think you're right. Is it like the dash?
It's after the dash.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Zeros.
It's okay. I think it's O's, but that's okay. Don't worry about that. Just submit it. We can look them up if I'm not the one who does it for credit, but we can look it up. And I think it's O's, but I'm not
O's.
sure.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I just sent it. Did you get it?
Did you email it?
Yes.
Okay, let me see. I have Larry's and I have Carson's and I have Diana's and Judy. I don't have it yet, but let's see if it comes.
Okay. Well, maybe I should try.
It says Lena.
Yeah.
Elena is your license under Elena? Yes, you put that at the bottom. I got it.
You
Yep.
got it. Perfect.
Yep. Okay. Everybody have a good day. Let me know if you need anything else. Feel free to call or text me.
Thank you so much.
Helen.
Do you still need, you don't need me to go through the QR code, do you?
Nope.
Okay. Perfect.
Helen, I don't get the QR code part, so if you submitted it through there, I'm sure we have it. And we'll make sure to let you know.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day, you guys. Talk soon. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so